Well, the election is over, and welcome to the After Action Review. And the first one we're doing for just our audience. So it's great to see everybody in the chat. Can't wait to answer all of the questions that you have for us today. And I'm pretty excited because not only did we have a pretty good, I think it was a pretty good day on Tuesday. I'm looking back on some of the previous episodes that we did, and as much as I hate to say nice things when he's sitting here right in front of me, but Christian, resident historian, political prognosticator, Oracle of Virginia, man, like pretty much got it spot on across the board. Could you just leave the room for a minute while I say nice things, and then you can come back?
Hang on.
There
we go.
No, yeah, across the board, Christian called it. But it was an incredible night. I think we had said that, look, we were expecting a Trump victory, and pretty much every state that Christian called not only went the way he thought it would, but was pretty much within the points that he said it would be. And what we wanted to do today was a couple of things. We wanted to do an after-action review, so we wanted to talk through some of the data that we saw on the national level, because the one thing that did happen that we weren't sure of was Trump winning the popular vote. That was the thing that I think we had the most skepticism of, and he didn't just win it. He won it pretty soundly. It's not like he won it by a couple 100,000 votes. I think
when we did the predictions, I'm pretty sure I said he would win the popular vote.
I did
pretty
too on that
sure
one.
I said that.
I did too. And the other thing too, I will say that my crazy prediction that Trump would win 30% of the black male vote was off, but he did get 24%, which was pretty significant. But yeah, so what we're going to do today is we're going to go through, we're going to talk a little bit about why things went down the way they did. Why did things happen? Who showed up, and what was the real difference? Because a lot of people right now have different ideas. The left have their own ideas about why Trump won, and apparently it's because we're just all Nazis and we have a real Nazi problem in America. And in fact, we had some people even saying that they were afraid they were going to go to sleep and wake up a slave the next morning. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, because there is a mindset here, and it's not just limited to kind of like your crazy college students or something like that. Because like I was blocked yesterday by a colleague of mine in the General Assembly, Senator Mamie Locke. Blocked me on her Twitter because I had something I wanted to encourage her, right? Because she was claiming that we were about to undergo a reign of terror, and that this was a Barabbas moment. For those of you who don't understand the biblical reference there, Barabbas was the one that when Pontius Pilate came out and said, the tradition is that we release somebody, and he said, well, do you want me to release Jesus? And he goes, no, Barabbas. And so Senator Locke believed that Kamala Harris was the sit-in for Jesus Christ in this election, and Trump was Barabbas, and she was very disappointed. And so I might have quote tweeted her and said, Senator Locke, is the reign of terror in the room with us right now? Like, is this like? And yeah, that was enough to block me. I guarantee you, she is planning all kinds
Everything
of things.
Everything I'm seeing right now, all of these meltdowns, these reactions, the trauma that all of these people are feeling, it's just trauma.
Yeah.
And what's really crazy is that all of this trauma that they are somehow experiencing is 100% inside their heads.
Yeah.
They are literally mentally ill. And the Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing.
Well, I want to get into that. So the first part of what we're going to talk about is all about after action review. Let's actually look at the numbers that we have so far. Obviously, it's going to be some time before everything comes in to where we can do like a really, really no kidding deep dive. But we've got enough to work on right now to explain what happened and why, and to do it based off of data, not just feelings or vibes or Saturn being in retrograde or whatever else Joy Reid is using to explain the election results.
I have to say, I'm a little bit offended that you did not introduce me. You introduced Christian, but not me.
I am going to introduce you,
I'm
babe.
so sad.
Don't. Well, apparently you just took care of it. So here's the and the second thing that we're going to talk about is going to be kind of what needs to happen next, because as we all know, the fight isn't over. I think it's important though, when you have a big victory, celebrate the victory. Right? Like, take some time to be happy, to thank everybody for their hard work without immediately telling everyone, okay, now we have to do X, Y, Z. No, take some time, enjoy the moment. And then we will have some discussion on what should happen next and how excited I am that I think it's actually going to happen. This is the first time in a long time we've gotten a win where I not only was excited about the win, but I was excited that we were really going to do what needed to be done, because we didn't just get the presidency, we got the House and we got the Senate. And so that gives real power, but there's some things we got to watch out for. So as always, I'm your host, Nick Freitas, member of the Virginia House of Delegates, blocked by Senator Mamie Locke and Larry Sabato at the Center for Politics at UVA. But other than that, a good guy. With me in the studio, my beautiful bride, Tina, Queen of the Bees.
Oh, I did get an introduction. Thank you, babe.
And Lagatha, terror of English monasteries in northern England.
She wants to run around. And
she looks sweet. She looks sweet, but she stabbed a guy on the way over here as soon as we let her off the leash. Every single time. And then introduced for a second time, because you earned it, my friend, Christian Hines, political prognosticator, resident historian, Oracle of Virginia, and this is his I Was Right episode. How you doing, Christian?
I'm doing incredible right now. I mean, words can't describe how I'm feeling, considering that I can look at this result and be like, I played a small role in making it happen.
Yeah.
And
no, you did. You worked. For those of you who don't know, one of the reasons why Christian couldn't be here on election night is because for the last several months, Christian has been working with an organization called CAA that we do a lot of work with. Great organization. Cliff
He used
Maloney
his
heads that up.
powers for good.
And I remember Cliff called up and said, "Hey, we really need Christian." I'm like, "Well, that makes two of us. I need Christian for what I'm doing." He goes, "Nick, this is going to be Pennsylvania. This is going to be probably the state that decides that we really need him to come up and do data analysis, modeling." Fine.
I think I remember Christian kind of didn't want to do it at first.
Cliff actually asked me on election night. He's like, Christian, I was talking to him. I'm like, Cliff, I think I'm going to ask for a raise. And he's like, you should. And then he's like, wait, how close was your model? And I was like, I was off by 0.46% from the final result. And he's like, I don't think I could afford you.
Yeah.
So actually, speaking of that, I have a new pinned tweet that I want to show people. Also a new nickname in my Twitter bio that I heard that apparently you were promoting on the podcast on Tuesday.
What was that?
Very rare for Nick to be promoting my Twitter account. Usually it's me promoting my own Twitter account.
It was our crutch to get through the night.
Were you looking at like...
I was checking your Twitter like every 5 seconds.
Did you see that full caps tweet where I was like, can you believe it? A 9-point shift in Loudoun County. This election is over. And it was 8 p.m. when that dropped.
Yeah.
And like, okay, I've got a story for you real quick. On election night, I'm in the war room in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the state capital, with like 100 people. And, we're watching the returns pour in. We've got all the monitors up. Everything's up. And I see what happens in our Commonwealth of Virginia. I see Loudoun County drop, and almost nothing else had come in. And it was kind of interesting that a full county result in Nova, including mail-in ballots, early voting, all that stuff, election day came in, and it showed that it showed that compared to Biden's victory in 2020, Trump erased 9 points off the margin from the 2020 election. It shifted 9 points to the right. And I remember standing up and just shouting. I'm like, we've won this election. And Cliff like turns to me and he's like, but Christian, nothing has come in from Pennsylvania yet. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Look at what happened in Loudoun County. And I was like, I can't believe this, a 9-point shift. And that's when I pulled up my Twitter account and I just posted it on my phone. And I'm like, a 9-point shift in Loudoun County, the richest county in America, the heart of the Leviathan that we've talked about on this podcast, right? A 9-point shift in Loudoun County means this election is over. There is no way she can survive something like that when you extrapolate that out to the other swing states. And so this whole election cycle, I've been modeling Virginia just like I did for Youngkin's race in 2021. And on the day before Election Day, this was the margin that I put out for Virginia. I had Trump with 47 and some percentage, decimal points, and then I had Harris at 52. And my final margin prediction was Harris by 4.75. And according to VPAP, the final result was Harris by 5.21. So I was off by 0.46%. And the funny thing is that because I was busy working on Election Day, I actually did not get to share the final results of the model. there was a last batch of mail that dropped the night before.
Yeah.
And so when I plugged it into the model on the morning of election day, the model was actually Harris by 5.09, but I didn't post that because I felt like it'd be cheating.
So your model was 5.09 and she ended up winning by 5.21.
Yeah, so the model, what I publicly predicted,
yes,
I was off by 0.46%. But what the model privately predicted on election day, it was off by 0.12%.
Yeah.
So and considering that I was ruthlessly mocked on the internet here for making those predictions. I had so many people that were like, "You're an idiot. You have no idea what you're talking about. Harris is going to win Virginia." I had Chaz Nuttycombe, who's he's like my mirror image on the left.
Yeah,
he predicts state legislative elections and elections in Virginia. He got destroyed with his predictions this year. We can go into that a little bit. He tweeted the day before election day, Harris by 10 in Virginia.
Yeah.
And he thought Harris was going to flip North Carolina, hold Georgia, hold Pennsylvania, hold Wisconsin, hold Michigan, and hold Nevada, and that she would only lose Arizona.
Okay, let me ask you a question real quick while we're on this, because Chaz is not like a nut job. Like, we don't agree with Chaz politically, but I've always looked at
he's smart.
I've always looked at Chaz as someone that he's still data driven. Right, he's not. Again, he doesn't predict elections based off of Saturn being in retrograde. Right, he doesn't consult his crystals. Why do you think Chaz had it so wrong?
He thought this was going to be a 2012 polling miss in favor of the Democrats.
Okay.
Well, and the reason they thought that is because the polling has been so off and so wrong on Trump for so long that the idea was there's no way they get it so far off 3 times. They had to have fixed the polling. And if they fixed the polling, then it's either right on the nose or they might have overcorrected. And so they were betting on the idea that the polling had been fixed or even swinging the other direction.
Yeah.
And in Chaz's case, he thought, Harris is going to overperform her polling, and then she's going to win because of that.
Can we also address like one of the polling elephants in the room, and that's the last minute poll that came out about Iowa?
Yes. So
because I was roasting Adam, what is it, Kinzinger, or what's his name? Adam, former congressman.
Adam Kinzinger, he's one of those rhinos that endorsed Harris.
Yeah, he was showing. He did a tweet showing. Oh my gosh, if I was Trump, I would be losing it right now. And I was like, hey, why'd you limit comments on that? But there was a last minute poll that showed up that had Kamala Harris leading Trump in Iowa by 3 points, which, correctly, everybody was flipping out because like nobody had that going on in Iowa. So what was behind that? Was that just really bad modeling, or was that somebody who is up to this point considered to be somewhat of a respected, trying to actually manipulate?
Can I tell you what I think actually happened?
Yeah, please.
I am a Seltzer truther. Ann Seltzer was paid off by the Democrats.
Okay.
Because she's going to almost certainly retire. And she's anti-Trump, although she kept that under wraps during her career.
Yeah.
And she wanted to give this final boost of enthusiasm to Democrats in the closing stretch by putting out a suppression poll to discourage Republicans to vote. And I know that this is a fact because her results were leaked to the Democratic governor of Illinois and his staff, and to the Harris campaign before it was even dropped.
Really?
So Democrats running on the Harris campaign and in the governor of Illinois' office knew about the poll 2 days before the poll actually dropped. And nobody like Ann Seltzer, who did have a good track record until this year, would have ever released a poll like that had a Biden +2 sample for recalled vote in a state that Trump won by 8 points.
Yeah, yeah.
And to give you an idea of how bad it was, she had a poll in the summer right before Biden dropped out. This might have been one of these type of polls that was done in order to try to force him out.
Yeah.
That actually was very close to the final result in Iowa.
Oh, wow.
And so she accurately pulled Iowa when it looked like that Biden was about to just collapse across the board in order to try to force him out.
Yeah.
And then once he's gone, she then twists the methodology of her own polling in order to benefit Harris. But to give you an idea of how bad it is, she had Harris by 3 in Iowa. Let's look at the margin in Iowa here. So we've got the map. New York Times should be burned to the ground, but they do make good election maps.
Yeah, they do.
So here's the Iowa results.
We don't mean that literally, New York Times. We're not advocating violence against you.
Yeah, they don't understand sarcasm at all.
Nobody, you can evacuate the building before you burn it to the ground. But in
Iowa, that wouldn't fix the problem. See,
here's the. Actually, it would, because Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter. Okay, hang on.
They could always find a different building.
So Tina got us off track with something, but I will say Elon's purchase of Twitter Elon's purchase of Twitter really changed the game because
Yeah.
it decentralized media, and the left was only able to get away with their weaponization of every institution in this country as long as they had a monopoly on the control of information and communications, and that's been shattered this election cycle. We might be able to get a little bit more into that with how the pundits got it horribly wrong and the pollsters got it horribly wrong, and people with anime profile pictures on Twitter got it right. But look at this result in Iowa, Nick. Trump, 56%, Harris, 43%.
Yeah.
That is a 13-point victory for Trump in a state that Ann Seltzer said would vote for Harris by 3. So if my math serves me right, that is a 16-point polling miss.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I said, like, every once in a while you get some weird poll that comes out and it's always from like some Democrat shop or whatnot. And like you said, it's a suppression poll, or it's meant to either discourage one side or encourage yours or both. But when I saw that and it was from Seltzer, I'm like, no, this is... She knows she's too good at what she does to have done this by accident or to make some like massive data. Because the first thing anybody that's looking, like for instance, if you showed me a Republican poll, if you showed me a poll that said that Trump was winning Massachusetts by 3 points. Actually, I won't go Massachusetts. That's a little bit crazy. Let's say, I'm trying to think of a good state that we could use as New Hampshire. If you would have said that Trump is winning New Hampshire by 5 points, I'd have been like, is that real? Is that a one-off? Is that like, is there something crazy here? What happened? Like that would be my natural inclination because we don't win New Hampshire.
It is a swingy-ish state.
It is a swingy-ish state, but you see what I'm saying? Like Iowa used to be a little bit more swingy. At one point it was. It isn't as much anymore. All right, so I'm trying to find a blue state that if you told Colorado, maybe Colorado's a better example. If you told me that Trump's winning Colorado by 3 points, I'd be like, okay, I want to see some other polls. And then I would assume it was done by kind of a lesser shop or maybe some, I don't know, college that had an agenda. But it was done by her. I was like, oh no. Like I got conspiratorial real quick when I saw that. I said, this isn't by accident. This is purposeful, and it's coming from someone that knows better, which is a little bit shady.
It was
This
a
is
suppression
also
poll.
in addition to others who were also very well known. Alan Lightman from 1984 had his little methodology, the keys to the election, that hadn't failed in eons, and it failed. He kept coming out with no, she's going to win because of the keys, and she gets these keys, he gets those keys, and now he's doing this long drawn out thing as to what he was super shocked, and he's doing this whole, well, here's why I was wrong. I have to find out why the keys didn't work properly or what it was. And in my opinion, because I read through it at the very beginning when he was talking about, oh, she's going to win and here are the keys. She gets these keys. He gets those keys. And when I was looking at it, I'm going, I don't think the keys were wrong. I think him attributing keys to her was wrong.
Yes.
And it was wishful thinking in the highest order.
Yeah.
Saying we have a super strong economy and there's no scandals
Right.
and there's no unrest.
Saying all of that and also saying this is the incumbent. She really wasn't the incumbent. And so giving her all those keys some of the keys literally had to be split, like the incumbency. You're the incumbent party, but you're not actually the incumbent. And Trump also has incumbent power too because he was also in
went
office
full
beforehand.
hack mode.
Yeah, he
So
did. It's
it's
well,
like-
the problem is when you set up categories like that, it gives you. He took liberty with the keys.
Exactly.
He took liberty. I think you're right. I think
It's
you're
only as
spot
good
on.
as the data you're putting into it.
Well, it's also only as good as how you actually manipulate that in order to, I've decided that Kamala's got incumbency. Like, there's no way she had incumbency the same way that an actual sitting president would have incumbency.
And saying there's no unrest
so
and that the economy's
instead
good.
of saying, I'm not giving either side the key on this one. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Like, that would have been a fairer analysis. Or maybe she has this key, but she doesn't have the full effect of it. That would have been honest analysis. But this one, we got a question here from Whitfield. Question: what happened to the 15 million Democrat voters? Because there was a first of all, between 2020 and 2024, there was a massive drop in both Democrat and Republican voter turnout. There was a significant drop off. Now,
Not a huge drop off for Trump. He got 74 million in 2020, and he's currently at 72, almost 73 million.
No, I get it. But I'm saying is that both sides have a drop off, but the Democrat drop off was significant. Now, a lot of people have looked at this, and I even had some fun with this, where I was watching Democrats get out there and be like, how can it be possible that we lost 15 million Democrat voters or 20 million Democrat voters? I said, ooh, you're getting close. You're getting close to the...
Can
Watch
I give
out,
you the
don't
answer?
dig too deep,
Watch
or you
out.
might
Can I
need
give
a
you the
tinfoil
answer
hat.
I honestly think there's a less than conspiratorial response. What would that be, Christian?
The reason why is because those 15 million people weren't mailed a ballot this time.
Yeah.
Yep, COVID gave them an excuse to mail a ballot to everyone when it wasn't even requested.
Even if they were a 0 out of 4 vote, a 0 out of 10 voter who had never voted in their life, had no desire to ever vote, and then Democrats, especially in swing states, went out there and they harvested all the ballots.
Ballot harvesting.
Ballot harvesting was a big problem. And here's the other thing, too. It is one thing to say, please mail me a ballot. It is another thing for somebody else to mail you a ballot. And now you
may
say,
not even live in the same location.
Now you might say, what's the big deal? Why wouldn't it be a good thing to just automatically mail someone a ballot for what Tina just mentioned? What happens when they don't live there anymore? What happens when you have someone that is willing to be less than honest? What happens when there's
what
a
happens
lot
when they're dead?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first episode that we have done where we are streaming exclusively to our audience. Again, we're going to make all the content available for you on YouTube, but we wanted to set up a special intentional community. And if you go on to the link in the description, you will find out how you can join that community and the various subscriptions that we had available. Subscription 1 is where we make the live taping, the live interaction of our podcast exclusive to our audience. And the reason why we did that is because we wanted to be able to focus on their questions. We also wanted to be able to focus on the topics that they want us to discuss on this podcast. We also have another subscription on there where we do monthly meetups with Tina and myself. And this gives us an opportunity to be able to talk to our audience and to be able to go a little bit more in depth. It's a very, very much oriented on a back and forth question and answer sort of environment. We've already done 2 of these now where we spent a couple hours talking with our audience about the things that concerned them, and we had a great time. Now, if you sign up today, we're going to give you 60 days free with that subscription so that you can see what it's all about, see whether or not you like it, and be a part of this community. Because as much as we love being able to work within the various platforms that we currently post all of our content to, we also recognize that there may come a day where we say something that causes them to kick us off. And if that happens, we want to always be able to have the capability to go to our audience to continue to build this community, and we hope you'll be a part of it. Thank you very much. Let's get back to the show. You increase the odds of voter fraud when you do something like that. We had this whole instance in Virginia where the Virginia speaker, Democrat Don Scott, was getting up there going, Glenn Youngkin and Jason Mears are deliberately trying to kick eligible voters off the voting rolls. No, they weren't. They were taking people off. We have a system in Virginia where if you're not a citizen, so understand this, it's not something where Virginia is just combing through voter rolls, looking for people that are potential non-citizens and, thinking they might not be. That's not what this is. The process starts with you informing the Commonwealth of Virginia, hey, I'm a non-citizen, I'm not eligible to vote. Now, you should be asking the question, why did they get on the voter rolls in the first place? Well, that probably has to do with the fact that Democrats make it very, very easy to get on the voter rolls, even when, again, I don't have a problem with it being easy to get on the voter rolls, but we probably should have some mechanism to try to prevent people who are not eligible from being on there. I think that would be a good idea, but they're not interested in that for obvious reasons. And then there was this complete misrepresentation of what Youngkin and Mears were trying to do. It was like, look, these people informed us they're not citizens. We're removing them from the voter rolls. Well, some people got it wrong. Some people accidentally filled in the wrong box. They can show up on election day, fill out a provisional ballot, and their vote will be counted. If they're an eligible voter, we have mechanisms to make sure that their vote's counted. All right, but the Democrats are going out there. Don Scott, the Speaker of the House of Virginia, is going out there creating this, fury that, oh, no, this is. And then here was the most comical part. In the article, it's like, it's very clear in Virginia law that non-citizens are not allowed to vote. See? Oh, gosh, Mr. Speaker, is that how it works? If you pass a law, the law is never broken? Oh, how good. How good to know. I didn't realize that's how it worked. Right, but that's honestly what they were using as their excuse. Well, this is already illegal. Okay, but if it's illegal, but you make it really easy to do, one, people could accidentally break the law, or people could intentionally break the law and you'll never know. Or if you find out, it'll be too late because the vote was already cast. So even if you can prosecute the fraud, you can't change the impact on the election. See, this is what reasonable people do when they look at a piece of policy and they say, there's the law, and then there's the enforcement of the law. And then we ask ourselves questions like, have we written this law in such a way to where we can actually enforce it? And if the answer is no, people start to get the idea that you might not be serious about enforcing it. So that's how that works, Mr. Speaker.
It's also interesting that on election day, there were a few reports circulating, and I'm not sure of the validity of them, but I did see the pictures, and it looked like it was probably legit, of someone getting arrested for voter intimidation for putting up a sign that says, if you are not a citizen of the United States, it is illegal for you to vote. And here's the section in the code where it says that.
Yeah.
And here's the punishment that could ensue if you do. Yeah. And that person got in trouble for voter intimidation.
Yeah.
Because they might intimidate non-citizens from voting.
Well, and by the way, the only way that you actually prosecute voter fraud is if you actually have people that want to prosecute it. Yeah. How many of you think want to prosecute it in blue counties?
None. And you know what's really crazy is a huge majority, a super majority of the United States believes that voter ID is necessary.
Yes.
Picture voter ID is necessary.
Yeah.
And yet the Democrats, like, they are white knuckling this thing like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it is purely and utterly for one reason and one reason only, because that's the only way you can look at this.
Well, keep in mind the same people that are saying that, well, non-citizens can't vote. This is ridiculous. They can't vote. These are the same people that carried legislation in Virginia this year to try to facilitate, like, for instance, you don't have to be a citizen of the United States to be a police chief, right? In Virginia, that was legislation they were carrying. They were carrying other legislation to allow them to serve on local boards. They are slowly but surely moving this, and they're starting at the local level where it's going to be something. And they never describe them as illegal aliens, right? Because nobody's illegal. They always describe it as these are fellow members of our community, and they should be able. They contribute, and they should be able to participate in the process. They are paving the way for non-citizens to be able to vote. That's what they're doing. Hey, Whitfield had a question here. Oh man, where did it go?
To Christian, is Loudoun County a bellwether county?
No, it is not. Look, Trump still lost it about 56 to 40-ish or 41.
Yeah.
The reason that I looked at Loudoun County and the results and determined that Harris had lost the election, it was 8 o'clock and I knew that Harris had lost the election. If you go back and look at the timestamps on my Twitter feed that apparently you guys were reacting to, I was saying that stuff at like 8 o'clock. And the reason why I was so optimistic was because, again, you can't overcome a 9-point shift in Loudoun County. Like,
in a deep blue place. That's why we got the popular vote, is because of how he chipped away from all these blue
So speaking
areas.
of that, I want to show you guys something in a second, but to put a bow on what happened in Loudoun County. When Loudoun County dropped, but we hadn't seen the rest of the state yet, and then other parts of Northern Virginia dropped as well, it briefly looked like Virginia would flip. The reason it didn't was because you didn't get a uniform swing everywhere.
Yeah.
Northern Virginia actually did its job of swinging further to the right than it needed to for Trump to win, but he didn't get the swings in the Richmond metro area. In fact, some parts of the Richmond metro area moved to the left from 2020. New Kent and Hanover and Goochland moved to the left. And these are Republican counties, but
they're commuting distance to Richmond.
And you have a lot of libs that live in Henrico or Chesterfield that now they want to experience country life. So they move out to New Kent County where it's cheaper and you can buy more land, and then they don't change their voting habits. And so they carry their voting habits with them, and they dilute the vote of those counties. And so, like, if you had that type of swing that you saw in Manassas across the whole state, Trump would have won Virginia by the same margin as Glenn Youngkin, but you only had that shift in Northern Virginia. So I want to blow your mind here.
Ooh.
I don't think that you have seen all of the type of results yet.
No, I haven't.
What happened last night is unprecedented. It is proof that we are now living in what should be called the seventh party system. In American political history, there's party systems that describe the political environment of several generations until a party system dies. So the first party system was during the Founding Fathers. You had the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, and eventually the Jeffersonian Republicans battling it out. The Federalists die, Jeffersonian Republicans become victorious, and then they last until they kind of shatter. And then you get the emergence of the modern Democratic Party with Andrew Jackson. Once the Founding Father generation is gone by the 1820s. And then you have the second party system that lasts until you get to shortly before the Civil War. And then you have the third party system, which is during the Civil War period, that then feeds into the fourth party system, which is like the Gilded Age leading up to the Progressive Era. And then you have the fifth party system, which is like the Progressive Era and FDR, right? So it's like the early 20th century. And then you have the sixth party system, which Reagan puts an end to the New Deal coalition when he wins in 1980, and he ushers in what we call the sixth party system. By the way, understand that the exact dates that I gave there are those are loose estimations.
Yeah.
They're not.
They're periods of time, not like specific dates.
But we are there's been this general consensus that we were living in the sixth party system since 1980. The sixth party system's over. We are now in the seventh party system, and we've actually been in the seventh party system since 2016. But the way that these realignment elections work is it usually takes another election or two elections for it to solidify and for you to be able to look back in retrospect and realize, oh, there was a realignment and we're now in a new party system.
Yeah.
We're now in the seventh party system, and what just happened on Tuesday is proof of this. So I want to show you first off, we'll look at the swing map. And then I'll give you some margins with some states and then some localities. And you're just going to be stunned at what you're going to see. Same thing with the audience here. So here's the swing map from 2020 to 2024 by county.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Let's look at some individual counties here. I'm just going to drag this around. So here we go. Here's
Alexandria County?
Here's Manassas in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
9.5 point shift to the right. Here's Manassas Park.
Wow.
Heavy Hispanic, 13 point shift to the right. Let's look at.
Well, and again, let's explain to everyone here. This doesn't mean that all of a sudden, like Trump won all these. Again, it's just a Republican shift within that county.
Right.
So you can have a significant shift and still have it be an overwhelmingly blue county. The impact, though, is sometimes it's definitely felt when you get into things like the popular vote. And it really matters when it gets into races like governor, attorney general, lieutenant governor, because now you're talking about statewide races.
It doesn't help us in congressional races.
Doesn't help us in congressional necessarily. Doesn't help us in a lot of the like local state races, like your House of Delegates or your state House of Reps or your state Senate. But when it comes to gubernatorial, I'll tell you right now, Abigail Spanberger, who's running for governor next year in Virginia, she's looking at this map going, oh. Because even though she's still in a good situation, this major shift that took place within blue areas was not something that any of them anticipated.
But they're all assuming that the wind will be at their backs now and that it'll come swinging back their way. But I was going to ask a question. Can we see Detroit?
Yes. I'm going to. So a lot of people don't know Manassas or Manassas Park. So I'm going to show you some very famous places, very well-known places. Here is Bucks County, suburb of Philadelphia, 4.5 point shift. Trump flipped Bucks County, one of the collar counties. This is part of the reason he won Pennsylvania. Montgomery County, Philadelphia County, 5 point shift to the right.
Wow.
Trump still lost in a landslide, but you know what? That's a lot better than losing at 88-11.
Yeah.
Losing at 79-20 is a lot better, isn't it?
Yeah.
Here's Wayne County, Michigan, Detroit.
9 points. Jeez.
You cannot win the state of Michigan as a Democrat if Republicans are getting over 30%. I mean, in this case, almost 35% of the vote in Wayne County.
Yeah.
A third of the vote in Detroit. Wayne County, well, no, again, not just city of Detroit, right? Also the working class suburbs around Detroit as well. 9.2 point shift to the right. Here's Gary, Indiana. Lake County. 9.4 point shift to the right. Trump almost won Gary, Indiana. You want to see Will County, suburb of Chicago. We don't have Chicago in yet, but I will show you the percentage in a second.
5 points more.
Kenosha, that's just south of Milwaukee. Racine, just south of Milwaukee. Milwaukee barely moved because Milwaukee City moved heavy, but the white affluent suburbs around Milwaukee that are in Milwaukee County moved to the left.
Yeah,
So
is that crazy? It's like, oh, it's it's affluent.
It's always the awfuls, right?
Yeah.
Well,
okay, hang on. There's more. There's more. I promise you. There's. You want to see what happened in Miami?
Yeah.
Miami-Dade County.
19 points more
Oh
Republicans.
my
And Donald
gosh.
Trump won it by over 10 points.
He won it by 11 points.
Oh my gosh.
100% urban. 2 to 3 million people live in Miami-Dade.
When
Majority
was the last
minority.
time- when was the last time a Republican won like major urban areas?
1988.
So it was Reagan.
It was,
no, it was Bush,
HW.
HW Bush.
1988.
Wow.
Palm Beach County, where my family lives. Shout out to my Aunt Marina for voting, being probably the only one in my family other than me. You and I were probably the only ones who voted for Trump. Palm Beach County, 12-point shift to the right. Trump came within a fraction of a percentage point of winning what used to be one of the bluest counties in Florida. Palm Beach County was the county that voted 2-1 for Al Gore in 2000, and it was the home of the butterfly ballot controversy
Yes.
over the
hanging
election.
chads?
It was that controversy over the election in Florida was in Palm Beach, and the reason why was because the Gore campaign kept litigating Palm Beach because they knew that new votes out of Palm Beach would help them because they won Palm Beach 2-1, about 63-36 or something like that. And Trump came within a fraction of a percentage point of winning Palm Beach County.
So all of that is, I mean, very encouraging, very interesting. But I want to do something real quick if we could. Can you go back up to the east, kind of the East Coast? Because there's one area there that's a little bit concerning to me. So scroll in a little bit on kind of the Tennessee, North Carolina.
This is the Atlanta suburbs that moved to the left.
So go up a little bit though. Like see there in
That's
between.
Western North Carolina.
Yeah, so Western North Carolina. What is that all?
That's Asheville right there.
Okay. So
Buncombe,
those are
that's Asheville.
Yeah, Buncombe County.
But you know what? The rest of Western North Carolina
well, no,
around
that's
here,
not. See, that's what I'm saying. Like I'm looking like
that's a suburb of Asheville.
Okay,
This
go
is-
up north though. Go up north because there's like 3 other areas.
Yes. So
That surprises me.
you have to understand that when you're getting 76%, you're almost maxed out as a Republican. It's very hard for you to get more than that. And so you see these small
So these
shifts.
are small shifts. Okay.
Yeah.
So go. There's one other big blue arrow up there. over
That's
there.
Johnston County.
No.
That's a suburb.
Keep going to the left. Keep going to the left. Stop. Go to the left more. Go from
Under-
Greensboro. Go over there. You go. That one right there. There's another one right there. Ash County. Okay.
Yeah.
2.5.
Ski resort areas around there.
Okay.
Um,
All right. So I'm just looking because it's like Tennessee, North Carolina. We're relying on you to not go.
Oh no,
crazy.
Tennessee shifted hard to the right. Like
Yeah.
Williamson County, this is encouraging. Williamson County, very wealthy, very affluent.
Yeah.
It should be ground zero for where we're getting destroyed. And
Yeah.
Williamson actually
Is that where, like,
shifted harder
Franklin
to
is?
the right. This is one of the richest counties in the South is
Well,
Williamson
I
County.
think what it is that Tennessee attracts the right,
Well,
the refugees from the right.
This is what, okay, I want to talk about this just very, very quickly because I've had so many people tell me, well, no, watch Tennessee in 5 years is going to be liberal too. And we're going to lose Texas and we're going to lose all these other areas.
That's me. Nick's talking about me. I'm the one that was dooming about
Yeah.
that.
Well, no, I'm not. I've heard other people say it, but
Okay.
here's what I want. Here's what I want people to understand. When you look at stuff like this, not everyone moving to different states is, picking up and leaving California to turn their new state into California. I honestly believe that you have more geographical self-sorting taking place in some of these areas. And what's going to be interesting to see is when you see like a 9-point shift in a traditionally blue area, the question is does that 9-point shift stay? Or do those people leave? Or do you see the beginning of something happening within a state? And I think that's what's going to be really interesting to watch over the next
You want to get mind blown again?
Yeah.
Harris County, one of the largest counties in the entire country. This
Yeah.
is Houston.
Yeah.
This is, I think, the 3rd largest county in the country behind Chicago and LA County. 7.9 point shift to the right. Trump almost won Harris County outright. You're going to get blown away when you see the Rio Grande Valley. Hidalgo County, 1 million people
Yeah.
living on it. It's literally on the
board. I've been
Rio
there.
Grande.
I've been there, yeah.
Hidalgo County. Trump won Hidalgo County.
It
Oh my
shifted
gosh.
20 points to the right.
He won it.
On the board. What? But
This is a county that John McCain couldn't even get 30% of the vote in.
Christian, that's not possible because that's a heavy Hispanic area.
It's
and everyone
100%
knows,
Hispanic.
And everyone knows Donald Trump is an unrepentant racist and a Nazi. They never would have done this.
I want you to see understand the shift.
Yes.
I want you to see the vote history of Hidalgo County here. In 2012, we got 28% of the vote in Hidalgo County. In 2016, when Trump first ran, he lost Hidalgo County 27-68. He won it outright by 3 points.
Wow.
That's a shift from losing that county by 40 points
Well, and look at the county government.
to winning it. Every office is a Democrat.
I bet that's going to change.
And
It needs to.
This is almost a 50-point shift to the right since 2016 in Hidalgo County.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people need to take advantage of that and run against them.
Yeah.
So here, Maverick County. This is also on the Rio Grande Valley. 28-point shift to the right. And understand, all these counties shifted to the right in 2016 from
Yeah.
Or sorry, in 2020 from 2016 as well. Some of these counties, there are counties on the Rio Grande border that have not voted for a Republican in 130 years since the 1880s and 90s, and Trump won them outright. Starr County, 21-point shift to the right. Here's a big one for you. El Paso.
Wow.
20-point shift to the right in El Paso County.
This is this is another thing too that I think is important, because one of the, and I think we have the top level numbers. Like, so for instance, again, I predicted black men would vote for Trump by 30%. That was my crazy prediction. They actually did by, I think it was 24% was the last number I got. I don't know if you have more updated numbers right now. But you saw this thing. He outright won Hispanic men. Hispanic men voted for Trump right now. Where it's looking around the 52 to 54% mark. And what's important to understand about this is that these numbers were coming out fairly quick. These numbers were coming out fairly quick to demonstrate. In fact, you saw it on CNN where they did this map and they're like, here's the areas in the country where Harris outperformed Joe Biden in 2020. And they bring up the map and nothing
There's
changes.
nothing there.
Nothing changes.
She did not outperform at all.
It is not as if they were unaware that, again, who put out, go back, what was the last map you had up? I want to just see who, this is the New York Times had. So it's not like the left does not have access to the data, right? And you can look at all these blue areas to include areas that have been just absolute strongholds for them forever.
This is Dallas County.
So they're looking at it, and what was their response? Well, I guess the country is just a lot more racist, misogynist, bigoted, and fascist than we thought. And I'm looking at them going, you know what? You should continue with that messaging. Please continue with that messaging. I'm not even upset when you say it anymore.
Looks like Hawaii shifted to the right too.
I hope you double down. I hope you continue with that narrative. I hope you continue to tell people that are concerned about being able to pay for groceries that the real problem is not the policies that have been foisted upon them for which they have had nothing to do with those decision-making problems. No, the real problem is you're just a racist if you don't vote for us. You're just a sexist if you don't vote for us. You're just a bigot if you don't vote for us. Please, please, for the love of God, continue that messaging. Yeah. I'm Nick Freitas, and I approve your message.
And you're also a threat to democracy if you don't vote for this person that didn't use any democratic methods to get where she's at.
So Dallas County, which is obviously the city of Dallas, very large county, as you can see from the vote totals, 9.7-point shift to the right.
Wow.
Starr County on the Rio Grande Valley, 21-point shift to the right. Starr County has not voted for a Republican since 1896, I believe.
Jeez.
130-year. I mean, look at at one point in 2012, it voted 13 to 86 for the Democrat and for Obama, and Trump got 57% of the vote in Starr County.
Wow.
If you go back to the history, it just
95.
Going all the way back to 1912,
Democrat,
as far back as the records on Wikipedia go.
Yeah.
And like. Okay, so there's the shift. So now your mind has been blown. Now there's some places where they haven't finished counting, so the shift isn't here. So I'm going to just show you the margins, and then I'll show you the history links here, because there's other places, particularly Chicago, New York. You're going to be blown away. So here is, let me pull up Cook County, which is Chicago, and I'll show you the vote history in Cook County here. So Cook County, obviously very Democrat, right? In 2020, it voted 74 to 24. So that's a 50-point margin for Democrats in Cook County. You know, Biden got 1.7 million votes there to Trump's barely 500,000. And it's been in that 70% range for Democrats for a generation now, for 20 years.
Yeah.
Here are the current results right now in Cook County. 69 to 30 in Cook County for the Democrats. 69 to 30, and Trump didn't get 24%. So it's a 10-point shift. 10-point shift in Cook County. Let's look at
here real quick. We got some questions coming in here. First of all, Whitfield said, "Question, Christian, would you help Brandon Herrera run for Congress?"
Yeah, if he wants to hire me, I would definitely help him, because he'd be a great voice in Congress.
And then Scott asked, "Question for Christian: what about the counties around San Antonio, Austin, and Houston?" So Houston we showed was definitely a major shift.
Yeah, so we'll look at that, and then I'll show you some stuff in New York. So
let's look at Austin. I want to see Austin.
Austin is very, very blue, as you can see. Williamson did flip. It's a suburban county that has been trending to the left. And if you look at the shift here, you can see that everything around Austin did move to the right,
Travis-
but not heavily. Like, I mean, it did move.
Well, Travis
about 5
County is
points.
5.8, so that's not insignificant, but it's
Yeah.
not as big as you're seeing in some of the other areas.
I mean, everything around the Austin metro area did shift to the right.
Yeah.
It just didn't shift
and it's same thing-
20 something
no.
points.
And
But
same thing for San Antonio, right?
yeah. So everything around San Antonio, including including Bexar County. I mean, Bexar actually shifted heavily to
Yeah.
the right. Look at that, 8.5 points to the right.
Yeah.
That is San Antonio, is Bexar County. You can just tell when you see the huge vote totals that those are large urban counties.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we already talked about Harris shifting hard to the right, Dallas shifting hard to the right. Even the Dallas suburbs shifted to the right. Like Collin County, which is a suburb that has been moving away from us, shifted 7 points to the right.
Yeah.
Total
Jeez.
reversal. Same thing with Tarrant County, which we lost in 2020, shifted 5.5 points. So I want you to look at the Bronx here.
All right,
We
so
don't
we're going to New York City.
Yeah. We don't have the vote total, so I can't show you like the absolute vote totals. They're still counting. But so we don't have the shift, but we do have the margin right now. So here's the history of the Bronx here. Look at the numbers. So in 2012, we got 8% of the vote in the Bronx.
Yeah.
And Obama got 91.
Yeah.
This is a county of millions of people who live in the Bronx, right?
Yeah.
And in 2020, oh, look, we made gains. We got 15%,
Yeah.
and Democrats got 83%. It's
Yeah.
very, one of the bluest counties in the country. Here's what the current margins are in the Bronx.
Wow.
We got over a quarter of the vote in the Bronx, 27 to 73. When you do the math here, 73 minus 27 is 46-point victory for Democrats in the Bronx this year. Look
Wow.
at where we were. So now we'll do the math of 2020. It went from a 68-point victory for Biden
Yeah.
to a 46-point
Yeah.
victory. That's a 20-point shift to the right in the Bronx.
So let's talk about this. So you have made the case, right? You have made the case that across the board. Real quick, I do want to get to Erica's question because I think this is an important one because of walls. What happened in Minnesota?
So,
Can we throw up the map?
I just want to point out one last thing.
Yeah.
Donald Trump got the highest percentage of the vote of any Republican in the Bronx since Ronald Reagan in 1984. So now we'll look at the state level stuff. So I've shown you some of the county stuff, right?
Yeah.
Now I want to blow your mind with some of the state level stuff. But first, I'll start with showing you
Good, because we got questions. We got
Yep.
questions for both Minnesota and California.
I'll show you Minnesota. So here's Minnesota, 51-47 for Harris. That is 4-point victory. So it went from being about 7 points for Biden in 2020 to about 4. It did shift to the right, but it didn't shift hard to the right.
Yeah.
It was just a normal shift. The problem is the Minneapolis area didn't move at all.
Yeah.
Like we're talking fractions
That's
of a percentage
interesting.
point.
A part of me wondered what would happen with a place like Minneapolis because it just burned under walls during all the riots and everything else. Like just burned.
Minneapolis has very ideologically possessed people rather than Democrats that are voting Democrat because they've just always voted Democrat. But they're actually, I mean, think about it. If you're a voter in the Bronx, you vote Democrat because what else are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that you're a leftist, right? A Hispanic guy or a black guy living in the Bronx, he's voting Democrat because, again, what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're a leftist. Minneapolis has leftists living in it. Seattle has leftists living in it. And so
Yeah.
these places aren't going to shift to the right because they don't care about inflation or the border. They love open borders.
Yeah.
They love money printing. And so they're not going
Or-
to
or
change
it's
because
just- or
they're
it's
bought
just-
into the system.
Or the other thing too is that things can become deeply cultural.
Yeah.
Things become deeply cultural with a particular area or whatnot. So
Here's
you saw a shift in Minnesota.
here's some other things that I want to show you, which is the 2020 margins. So here's the 2020 map. And now we'll go down to the results just that way I can show you the margins in some of these states here, because now I'm going to show you statewide results from this year. So let's start with some of the swing states here. Okay, Pennsylvania. Biden won Pennsylvania by 1.16%. Trump is going to win it by about 1.5 points. Once you actually look at the total results here, he's winning it by 1.5 points right now. Which, by the way, if you remember our podcast where
you said
I said exactly 1.5 points.
Yeah.
But that's actually not where the crazy stuff came in. Here's what you need to look at. Let's look at New Jersey. Biden won New Jersey by 16 points in 2020. Here's where New Jersey is right now.
Wow.
Read that to our audience.
That's
for
like
the
a
audio
5.
listeners.
So Biden won it by 16 points, and Harris is going to win it by, it looks like 6.
5
5
5.
points. Yeah.
New Jersey's a
Whoa.
swing state.
Can we really say that?
New Jersey's a swing state. 10-point shift to the right.
No, that's significant. But I also here's the thing. I think we also need to take.
You know
into
what's crazy,
consideration.
Nick?
What?
New Jersey was closer than Virginia.
That is crazy. That is nuts.
You
That
know?
is nuts.
Okay. Can I blow your mind again?
Yeah.
I love it when Christian has cool data.
Yeah.
This is
So-
great.
So I'm not showing my Twitter account.
I do.
but
By the way,
I do have.
By the way, I do want to see the shift in places like Portland and Seattle.
so we don't have those numbers yet.
That's right, because it's East Coast. Gosh dang. And somebody asked that too. Chris asked, okay, here's my question. How in the world is anywhere still counting? Really? That's a serious question I want to know. Chris, here's what I'll tell you. I wish I had a better answer for you. Every state has different laws with respect to their counting, how late their polls stay open, what their process is for their local registrars. You're absolutely right that it just shouldn't take that long. It just shouldn't, especially with all the automation that they've all told us is supposed to both ensure voter integrity and make the process quicker. But then you have things like provisional ballots. So what a provisional ballot is, if for those that don't know, is you come in and there's some issue. Maybe you're doing like in Virginia, we now have same-day voter registration. Well, that creates a big burden on the local registrar because they can't just take your vote and then throw it right in the voting machine. At least they better not, right? They got to take your vote and then they count them later. And so if you have things like same-day voter registration, you're now going to have a bunch of votes that you have to actually count like either later in the evening or after the fact, or you have to go through the process of verifying that they are in fact a citizen so that they can vote. And so that takes longer. You have absentees that return from overseas. Different states will accept absentees to varying degrees. And so all of those things factor on why it takes so much longer. And it's frustrating. Like I remember we've had bills before where it said like, look, if you've got overseas ballots from veterans deployed, we will give you till Friday to be able to count those to make sure that their votes are counted. And now usually we know who's already won by then, but it's a service that we try to provide to veterans to make sure that their votes get, or not veterans, but active duty service members, to make sure that their votes get counted. But I got to tell you, on some of these things where it's some of these things, it just gets frustrating because it shouldn't be this difficult. And it almost feels like it's intentionally made difficult. And I'd like to say I don't understand why, but I'm becoming more and more conspiratorial every day on why that is. But to give you just like a non-conspiratorial reason on why it takes so long, that explains some of it.
Okay, can I add to that? There are 8 states plus Washington, D.C. that conduct all mail-in elections. So it's only mail-in. You don't go to a polling location. Your ballot is mailed to you automatically, which means that's one of the reasons they get such high turnout is because your ballot's automatically sent to you. And so the states with that are Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Utah, and Colorado, plus Vermont and DC. And so Nevada is one of the ones having issues getting things in, quickly enough. Some of them have these laws where as long as it's postmarked by election day, which pushes it about 3 days after election day is when that actually gets there, and then they count it. And there's a lot of shenanigans. That's one of the reasons why the left coast is so incredibly just inept at everything.
So Nick, this is the craziest result of
All right,
them
so now we're getting to the craziest results, the most mind-blowing results of the night, according to Christian. Go.
Donald Trump came closer in New York State than Democrats did in Florida.
Wow.
Here is the 2012 results in New York State. We lost 63 to 35. Here's what it was in 2016. We lost 59 to 36. Here's what it was in 2020. We lost 60 to 37. Here's what it is in 2024. We've lost by 11 points.
44.
55 to 44.
Look at that. 55 to 44. Imagine, and here's the result in Florida. We won Florida by 13 points. Florida is now the Republican equivalent of California. And we came closer.
Wait, no way. Go to California. No way.
Not quite.
50s. Gosh, it is pretty close.
It's the Republican equivalent of
I mean,
California.
it's 17 in
and we got
California.
13 in
It's
Florida.
17.
Well,
That's
What I
that's
mean
still
by
big,
what I
yeah.
mean is it's a safe Republican, overwhelmingly
Yeah.
red states where we are winning. Miami, we're winning
Go
Hillsborough.
to Texas. Go to
California
Texas.
still has millions and millions of outstanding votes. And I think the reason they show those millions of outstanding votes is they haven't come in yet. They're expecting them to come
Yeah.
in, and they haven't come in yet. Some people just aren't going to mail it in. And so that number is going to drop significantly. But if all of those did come in and they counted them, then the numbers are going to be really different.
Okay.
So New York
think.
State, we lost by 11 points ish. I know this number actually shows it as 12, but it's actually more close to 11.
Yeah.
They're still counting, right? 92% are in, but we came closer in New York State than Democrats did in Florida.
Yeah.
We came we came closer to flipping New York than Democrats did flipping Texas. And they poured $150 million into flipping Texas, and we didn't spend a cent.
Did they honestly think they were going to flip Texas because
They did it to try to save the Senate. They wanted to flip the Senate race.
So
and
they wanted-
and
they-
so
they
it was out
thought
of desperation
Allard-
for the Senate.
Yeah,
But,
okay.
you know, what that does is it also affects the top line.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they spent $150 million in Texas. They went all in on Texas this year. And we came and we did nothing in New York
Yeah.
other than hold some rallies.
Yeah.
And Trump came closer to flipping New York than Democrats did Texas. Here's another fun fact for you. So, like, here's the margins, right? Again, just look at that.
Yeah.
I've never seen that number before in New York. Here's something funnier for you. Donald Trump came closer to winning Illinois than Democrats did Texas. We lost Illinois by 8 points.
Yeah.
We lost Illinois by a smaller margin than we lost Virginia by 4 years ago.
Now, was
This
there-
is unbelievable. To give you an idea, in 2020, Illinois' margin was 17 points for the
Yeah.
Democrat, and they lose it by 8 in Illinois.
So part of the concern in some of this was we were going to get to a point where you had people leaving these blue states and then they were impacting the voter turnout in red states. That's the concern about Austin. That's the concern about Nashville and Tennessee. That's the concern about, you know, other areas across the country. But the crazy part is it looks like the red states got redder from 2016 and from even 2020, and the blue states got redder too.
Yes.
The whole country
The whole country got redder. Democrats spent $150 million to lose Texas by a larger margin than Trump lost Delaware.
That's nuts. Oh, somebody asked, was there any significant shifts in California? Now, I do think it's interesting they got rid of the district attorney in Los Angeles. Now they replaced it with, like, I think a guy who was a Republican, or somebody was a Republican that used to be an independent, but they got rid of them. But again, it's interesting in California where they're not having major shifts with respect to, like, their state legislature or their governor or who they vote for president. But when it comes to their district attorneys, we've now seen Los Angeles and San Francisco reject their uber left-wing, let everybody out of jail, prosecute no crimes district attorneys.
We don't
And
have the big shift data, though, that we would have if a few more days, once they're done counting, we could probably see that data. But right now, like on the map that has all the arrows, we're not seeing that for California yet because they're not finished counting.
Yeah.
So
Let's do that. Let's take the next, like, couple of minutes and give us the again, just give us kind of the once over the world on your analysis.
The biggest shock to people should be that New York State voted 23 points for Joe Biden
yeah.
and barely 10 points for Kamala Harris.
So now do we think that this is when you talk about that this is a massive political realignment. I was just watching something from, what is it, Mansour Z's channel on YouTube. He was talking about when he was talking about the various political alignments throughout history. The one that we've been in right now has been kind of the neoliberal alliance. That's your, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and what makes it an era is not just like the Democrats who lead within that area or the main people, but that it also pulls the other party in that direction as well. George W. Bush was not some, bastion of conservative thought.
Dick Cheney endorsed Kamala.
Yeah, Dick Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris. You had a lot of former Bush people endorsing, and that was part of kind of that order that emerged after the, end of the Cold War. Because Reagan was definitely ideologically conservative. George H.W. Bush, not even as close. And then George W. Bush wasn't. And then you look at the other candidates that were getting the nomination. It was Mitt Romney. It was John McCain. These were people that fit very neatly into that kind of, neoliberal order. Bill Clinton tried to pretend that he wasn't a part of it. I remember when Bill Clinton ran, and in his first term, he goes, "The era of big government is over." And then as soon as he won, immediately started trying to usher in big government again, got wiped out in the midterms, and went right back into, "Oh, no, let's do welfare reform." Right? But post that, I mean, you really saw this shift that took place starting in the 90s. And now it seems like it's done. It's done. Like the 2016 was the first backlash against it that I didn't anticipate. I didn't think Trump was going to win in 2016. And then all of a sudden when he lost in 2020, there was this idea that, okay, what happened? Was this a flash in the pan? Is this just gone? What are we going to do? And then he comes roaring back and wins. And so now it does feel like we're at the beginning of kind of a new political realignment, a new adjustment. And the question is going to be, is that true? Is that accurate? Are we in that?
Yes.
Or is this just...
We're moving into a post-liberal direction. And
oh my gosh, yeah.
my good friend Mike Fuse is going to be mad about that. I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. Last thing to answer the California question. Los Angeles County in 2020 voted 44 points for Joe Biden, 71 to 26, almost 27. Los Angeles County today is 63-34 for Harris. So that's a 15-point shift to the right in LA County. That's the highest percentage of the
Trump
vote.
almost pulled up 1 million votes in LA County.
That is the highest percentage of the vote. If you look at the vote history in LA County, that's the highest percentage of the vote of a Republican in LA County since
Reagan.
HW in 1988.
Well, and Reagan was the last Republican president to win Los Angeles County. And keep in mind, Reagan had been governor of Los Angeles.
And by raw vote count, I mean only 61% of the ballots are in, and Trump's already almost at
California.
There's still 40% still to count in LA, and Trump's already at 900,000. He is there's a very good chance that he's going to eclipse his vote total in 2020. He is probably going to have the highest raw vote count of any Republican in LA County since Reagan.
Yeah.
And so California shifted pretty hard to the right this year. Yeah. It was it was alongside New York, one of the hardest shifts to the right. The bluest parts of America shifted the hardest to the right, which is why we no longer have a huge advantage in the electoral college. But to go back to the ideology thing.
Yeah.
I think that this theory is true. I was holding a Twitter space the other day, and there's a lot of people that tune in, but I usually bring in two guys that are members of the Democratic Party that speak because they're quite level-headed and they don't call you a racist, sexist bigot when they disagree with you. They just want to talk numbers. And so I entertain them because it's a good exchange back and forth. And one of these guys was saying that, these liberal parties are dying in Europe. Like you look at SPD in Germany, they're going to get they're the governing party right now, the Social Democrats, who are really more of so they're not. You have to understand there's different degrees of left-wing thought, right? Yes. Social Democrat does not mean the same thing as Venezuela-style socialism. Yes. They're both, centrally planned to some degree, but there are actual differences between the two, right? The SPD, the Social Democrats in Germany, they're going to get destroyed. The Free Democrats, who are the Libertarian Party, the actual liberal party in Germany, who are in a coalition with the SPD, they're polling at like 3% right now. They're going to lose all their seats in the German Bundesrat. liberal parties in France, Macron's party, they got obliterated in the EU elections this year and then in the parliamentary elections, and they were replaced by the avowed left-wing Popular Front and the National Rally, who were on the right. The Tories, who were definitely a liberal party, they got destroyed this year. And now Labour, who's the new ruling liberal party, because they're both just really two sides of the same coin, they're underwater, and they've only been in government for like 4 months. They're going to get destroyed in the next election. And then the final, the biggest story of it all is Trudeau's government, literally the Liberal Party in Canada. They're going to get they're going to get completely wiped out next year in Canada. And so what's happening is all of these like neoliberal, managerial class, bureaucrat-oriented, you will own nothing and be happy type, WEF parties that have been just running the show for generations now, really since certainly the end of the Cold War, but probably going back to the end of World War II. They're all dying.
Yeah.
And they're being replaced by avowed left-wing parties and avowed right-wing parties that openly embrace being right-wing parties, being nationalistic parties.
Well, I think we also need to understand something, because you said that the opposite sides of the same coin, and that really has become true. And I'm someone that like when I hear people say there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats, I look at them like, you don't know what you're talking about. You say this because it sounds good. It is fundamentally untrue. However, I do agree that there is an element within the political elite. I hate using that term, but within politics, where it is about maintaining the status quo. And when one side's in charge, okay, things gently pivot in one direction, or they move slower down the same direction. And when the other side's in charge, they move faster down the same direction. But I get it. There is an element that is representative of a lot of what we've experienced in the country. Now I think we're actually getting contrast.
Yes.
And this is the part that's actually this is important, because when people don't feel like they really have a choice, they kind of check out. And inevitably what ended up happening within this kind of neoliberal era was the country kept shifting more and more to the left. And then all of a sudden it shifted very quickly. And I think that's what jarred people out of their complacency, is that two things. One, it shifted very quickly. We went from, safe, legal, and rare on abortions. And you know what? We need to make sure that girls have money dedicated to their own sports and schools, to we can sexually transition your 12-year-old. And if you don't want grown men in a women's bathroom, you're a sexist, transphobic bigot. Whoa, wait, what? And people are like, no, that can't be true. Like there was this period of time like that. No, that can't be true. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, it is. It is absolutely true. That is where the party is going. And at the same time that you have that, because I watched from the inside as I saw Republicans be like, well, this isn't a good issue for us. It's like, what do you mean saying that boys can't go into girls' locker rooms is not a winning issue for us? How about if that's not a winning issue for us, we don't deserve to win? How about that? Right? How about if you're not willing to fight for something so fundamental as objective reality, you suck and should go home. If you're more concerned about getting your little budget amendment for your county than you are about confronting an obvious departure from sanity, then you don't need to be here. That's the sort of person, that's the sort of rep that is just interested about maintaining status quo and wants to enjoy their time when they go to session or whatever it is.
They want to go hobnob and have the parties. And unfortunately, there's a huge swath that are like that.
Yes. And then all this, so on one side, we had this massive shift to the left that just jarred people out of their complacency, combined with an actual candidate that shared their concerns and wasn't doing the Mitt Romney form of politics where it's like, well, we're gonna hobnob over here, and yep, I agree with you. That's pretty crazy. But then when they get into office, they don't really do anything about it, or they don't actually have any intention to do anything about it. It's all about maintaining the status quo. And hey, maybe we'll cut a point off of the top marginal tax rate, right? That's good enough, isn't it? It's like, no, that's not good enough. I want you to fight against this insanity. And now all of a sudden they had people that were willing to fight against the insanity. You gave people a reason to vote for a candidate. And what the Republican Party needs to understand right now, and I promise you that there are still significant portions that haven't figured this out. However, far less than the last time Trump got elected.
Well, because
Right.
people, last time Trump got elected, we still had a bunch of people digging in their heels and they refused to overturn
Yes.
Obamacare. And the people have not forgotten it. And they had that in mind when they chose their leaders from then on out. And so I am hoping that we can.
Obamacare's
stuff
not getting
done.
repealed,
No,
unfortunately.
I'm not
No,
talking about
that's-
Obamacare. I'm just talking about, I hope that conservative policy can actually get past some of these left-leaning
I think, Nick,
Republicans.
that you were talking more in a meta perspective in terms of, I mean, dare I say it, vibes, right? Like how we conduct politics. Look,
You don't change that when you talk about going into a whole new era of politics. That doesn't happen unless there is unless again you have something that wakes up people to want to change from what the current system actually exists, and you have somebody that is willing to make that change that people actually believe will do it. And this is part of the dynamic of Trump that I didn't get in 2016. I'll be honest about it. I didn't get it in 2016, but I get it now. It was the idea of this guy is burning the bridges with the way it has been done. He's burning the bridges, and that's the only way that you can have that shift, because he kept a lot of those bridges open in 2016. He kept it in the form of the people that he supported for Speaker of the House. He kept it in the form of the people that he supported for Senate Majority Leader. He kept it with respect to the people that he put into his cabinet, because it was the idea of, I'm going to reconcile with this side of the party, and then I'm going to show that they're going to show me how DC runs, and I'm going to show them how we're going to change it. And what he learned was they have no interest in changing it. You cannot go back to the people that fought you every step of the way and only got on board in the last minute because they had to, because they're the ones that understand that the bureaucracy rules and the status quo is powerful if you have people committed to it. And this time going in, he's not using those people. He had to get burned by them, and he did in the most amazing way possible, to where this time it's like, okay, I see you now, and I understand there is no working with you. There's only defeating you and offering an alternative. And that's why people were excited about him. The reason why people were excited about him fundamentally is this guy sees the same problem that we've been seeing forever in American politics, and he doesn't want to, do this slight little nuance. No, he wants to disrupt it.
I mean, here's the thing. Eventually, we just got to a point where we stopped caring about whether or not our enemies called us names,
Yes.
hated us. Like like I remember them saying Mitt Romney was a fascist. Mitt Romney is evil. Mitt Romney, the most limp wrist, feckless member of the Republican Party, other than apparently Liz Cheney and Jeff Flake, who went out there and endorsed Kamala Harris. What a bunch of traitors. And then the reason why we keep losing? Because our former Republican vice president went out there and endorsed Kamala Harris, of all people. We've spent generations electing losers to represent us and then expecting them to conserve anything. We should not be surprised that we were not able to conserve anything 20 years ago, when the people that we were electing to positions like vice president or to Congress or to Senate were then a few years later or a generation later coming out and endorsing Kamala Harris, of all people, against our Republican nominee in the future. We need to stop electing these losers. I don't know what else to call them. Like who wants Dick Cheney's endorsement for anything?
Yeah.
Right.
And so like this goes back to your point about Monchursi saying that the liberal order, whatever you want to call it, it is disintegrating. And the reason why we're moving towards a post-liberal politics. And you know Mike Fuse.
Yeah,
Like,
great guy.
Mike Fuse and I are friends, and he's friends with you as well. He's still a libertarian, and so we get into arguments because I'm not a libertarian, and he hates post-liberalism because he views it as big government republicanism.
Yeah.
And again, libertarians have this thing called the non-aggression principle,
Yes.
the NAP. They've got an NAP, but I like my NAP a little bit more than theirs. And my NAP is, the N is neutrality is a lie. The A is all politics is inherently theological. And the P is power abhors a vacuum. And once you realize those three things, everything starts to make sense, because what happened is that we backed off. We walked away from these institutions. We walked away from power because we said, well, we shouldn't be wielding anything to do anything. We should have a neutral ground. But there is no such thing as a neutral ground. An ideology, a worldview, a Weltanschauung, if you were to use the German word.
Let's not.
will always be enforced or reinforced by a society. And the question is, what type of worldview is going to be promoted? Are you going to have a worldview that promotes the family, that promotes life, that promotes patriotism, that promotes love of country, that promotes hard work, that promotes free markets? Are you going to have a worldview that actively encourages those things and discourages the opposite of those things? Or are you going to have a worldview that promotes degeneracy, decadence, that promotes statism, that promotes the worst type of individualism, atomized individualism, that tears down the family structure, that discourages love of country, and that's the type of worldview that we have right now. Liberalism is dissolving itself because it dissolves everything. It is a universal solvent that tears down the bonds that allow for a civilization to emerge in the first place. And the reason why is because it is so obsessed with theory and of process and of neutrality that you can't prioritize the exclusive over the inclusive. You can't prioritize your own nation over something that's happening halfway around the world, or you can't prioritize your own culture or your own way of life, your own traditions. You're not allowed to do that stuff because if you do, you get called a bigot eventually.
I agree that defines leftism. I don't believe that defines classical liberalism. And this is the part where I'm going to defend Mike on this one. Is that I'm not against, again, I enthusiastically supported Trump and I want to see him, what do I want to see him do? Exactly the things he's talking about doing. Putting Thomas Massey in charge of the USDA, bringing Joel Salatin, our buddy Joel Salatin, to go in and work with Thomas Massey to fundamentally gut the horrible policies that they've been doing on a federal level, to bring in people like Elon Musk and Ron Paul. Can I just say right now, if they're looking for people to work for free on that commission, I have gone to the Ron Swanson School of getting rid of government agencies and replacing them with nothing. I would love to serve on that commission with Elon Musk and Ron Paul. That's the point. I don't think this is an either or proposition. I share Mike's concern. I don't want right-wing authoritarianism. What I do want is for the right to actually stand up and defend what they care about and to come out and unequivocally say that the rejection of objective truth, objective morality is not just incorrect, it is fundamentally evil, and it will always and at all times lead to evil results. And you cannot have a free society composed with a significant portion of people that have no appreciation for free societies. And we have to actually define what those things are. So I am comfortable with this certain element of using power and wielding power the way that we should in a good and moral way that actually fosters freedom of inquiry, freedom of speech, property rights, free markets, individual liberty, personal responsibility. I'm okay with that. I don't think that requires right-wing authoritarianism. And I reject the notion that it does. So
I reject the notion that authoritarianism and totalitarianism are the same thing, though. I think that
I think that one typically leads to the other.
No, because all of human
there's a difference between authority and authoritarianism.
Yes, that's the point that I'm getting at. All of human history until 5 minutes ago would have been called by today's modern liberal standards authoritarian or totalitarian. All of human history. The entire Old Testament, all of the New Testament, all of civilization, the entire history of the Roman Empire, even the Roman Republic, by our modern standards, the Roman Republic would have been called an authoritarian system by our modern standards. Why? Because they didn't have universal suffrage. They didn't have our democracy. They actually had a very limited system. They had, it was an aristocratic republic, right? You had, the patricians ran a lot of it. Like the point that I'm trying to get across is the overwhelming majority of human history was not liberal. Mm-hmm. In any of the slightest sense. The greatest thinkers of all time were not liberal. Thomas Aquinas is not liberal. Plato is not liberal.
Okay, but I'll tell you this, Christian, you and I are not going to agree on giving up on the American Revolution in order to replace it for some sort of more authoritarian structure.
No, but I will disagree with our modern interpretation of what the American Revolution is about.
Absolutely. You and I are in complete agreement right there. You and I agree on far more than we disagree. But that's my whole point, is that I still believe in the underlying philosophy outlined in the Declaration of Independence and the attempt at what we were trying to achieve with the division of power and federalism within the Constitution. I still believe in that. I still want to save and preserve that. And I completely agree that you don't sit by and preserve it without using power when you have it in order to do the things that preserve it. So I agree with that. What I'm saying is that I don't want our version of the Department of Education at the federal level. I don't want the conservative Department of Education. I want it gone. I don't want our version of all these various departments and agencies, but now we're going to staff it with conservatives that will then impose. No, I want to get rid of them, because here's what I honestly believe. I do believe that one of the biggest threats to genuine freedom in this country is this massive unelected bureaucracy. And so we can take over that bureaucracy, but if we think we're going to wield it better than everybody else, okay, maybe, but over time, all you will have done is allow the same instrument of power to be then used against you. I still believe in that. I want to significantly reduce the power of government, because I believe that the less government you have, the more limited it is, and the more powerful people are over their own lives. I believe that fosters greater conservative principles.
But we also need to understand that there will be a government.
Yes, I agree.
There will be agencies.
We're not going to be Murray
departments.
Rothbards, anarcho-capitalists. That isn't happening. Like, I agree.
Yeah, sure. Get rid of the EPA. Get rid of HUD. But like, get rid of Department of Education. But there will be a State Department. There will be a Treasury Department.
Yes.
There will be a Justice Department.
Yes.
And you know what? The bureaucracy that is left after you eliminate the Leviathan, because there will be a government.
Yes.
What we call the bureaucracy that would be left.
Yeah.
Which would hopefully be minuscule compared to what currently exists.
Yes.
Will still exist. And you know what? I want our people in every single one of those offices.
I agree.
And I want our worldview promoted through every single one of those offices. Yes. But I agree with you that the size of the federal government needs to drastically be reduced. But what is left after that is done cannot be neutral.
Oh, no, look, can we agree on something right here? Because I think this has always been, I think this is something we've never quite worked out, either in our private conversations or even on air. I absolutely agree that if the remaining government agencies, which we both agree will be much smaller and far fewer than they currently exist, have to be committed to certain principles. If principles of, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Certain basic fundamental principles. You have to believe in objective reality in order to be able to carry out your duties with the Department of Justice. You have to believe in objective truth in order to be able to carry out your duties with respect to the Department of Justice. Right? Like, you have to believe in objective morality in order to be able to carry out your duties with the Department of Justice. So yeah, if you're just some sort of rabid person that hates the fundamentals of this country, I don't want you anywhere near the levers of power, because you will only use them to undermine the very country you claim to care about. So we don't disagree there. We may disagree with respect to application or intensity, or how do we determine, what's what on some of those things, or what should be the litmus test. But we don't disagree fundamentally that, I don't want a bunch of communists operate, pulling the levers of power.
Well, that's what we currently have. We have a bunch of cultural Marxists that have been running all of our, and that is the overall point that I want to get to. And in the future going forward, we definitely need to have deeper conversations about this type of stuff, because Nick, let me tell you, I will not share the name because I don't know if he would want me to, but when I'm having members of my state legislature liking certain tweets from me where I'm referencing highly controversial people, like Joseph DeMaistre or Carl Schmitt, who are not liberal people. And again, understand that when I'm citing these people, I'm not saying that I agree with their, we have gone through the caveats here. This is going to be the last final caveat. When I'm citing Carl Schmitt, that's not to say I agree with his solution that we need funny mustache man. That's the last caveat I will ever give on this front, because we should not be apologizing to the left. End of story there. But the point is that when I'm citing these people, and Joseph DeMaistre was an anti-counter-revolution, he was a counter-revolutionary in the French Revolution, vehemently hardcore absolute monarchist. Yeah. He hated the French Revolution, devout Catholic. But these are not liberal guys, right? They're certainly not.
We got to get to questions here.
The point is that when I'm quoting these people in tweets every now and then, and I'm having members of the state legislature who are not you liking those tweets. Yeah. And in some cases, retweeted them. I'm like, oh, there's a vibe shift going on here, because I'm citing names that 5 years ago, if I was citing them, I'd be called a fascist, or I'd be called a Nazi, or I'd be called a whatever, right? A super bad guy. And there's just been a vibe shift where it's like names that you would have never thought would have been normalized are becoming normalized, not because people agree with necessarily the route that they went or the decisions that they took, but rather because the thought process that they articulated is sound and is real, and they bring up real legitimate points. And the left have demonized our ability to even study these people because they knew that it would be dangerous to them if we did.
Well, yeah, there's a reason why people like Larry Sabato just blocked me. There's a reason why Senator Mamie Locke just blocked me. Senator Mamie Locke went in there and, again, said this was a Barabbas versus Jesus moment, and America chose Barabbas, and she's going to fight back against this reign of terror.
Oh, I'm glad she doesn't like democracy anymore.
Yeah, exactly, right? Apparently democracy is a bad idea now, right? And so I did a funny little thing of like, is the reign of terror in the room with you right now, Senator? Right? I even tagged her in it. I wasn't trying to like hide it from her. Immediately blocks me. And we've gone over this before, right? I first went into the General Assembly in 2016 thinking we're all Virginians. We want the same thing. We want all of our people to be happy, healthy, prosperous, and free. We just have different ideas on how to get there. I do not believe that anymore. I treated them that way. They treated me like I was their enemy. Then I saw what they did as soon as they got complete power in Virginia, and I realized, oh, I was wrong.
And they don't want people to be healthy and free. They don't even want to agree on what healthy is.
Yeah. Well,
like at this point, you're a bigoted right-wing conspiracy nut if you go to the gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you what we won't have under the Trump administration. We won't have some lipstick-wearing bald guy stealing women's clothing from their luggage at the airport and then wearing them to Washington, D.C. events and such. Like, I felt like I was living in clown world.
And that's why Trump is bringing genocide. Because if you can't dress up like a woman and steal another woman's luggage and then wear it around, well, then that's just genocide. That's fascism.
You don't want to go on Reddit right now.
That's fascism.
The comments on Reddit are
they're
melting down.
Melting down. Like the entire all this trauma they're going through is 100% in their own heads, just like last time. They literally did it in 2016, flipping out. We're going to get sent to internment camps. Yeah. They're going to round us up. They're going to do all this stuff. None of that happened. None of that's going to happen now, but they're going to pretend it's happening to them.
Yeah.
I saw one where they were saying, I cannot believe any woman would choose genocide under Donald Trump over women's rights under Harris, women's health care rights under Harris. And I'm looking at this going, what alternate reality do you live in? The only genocide happening is under people like Harris because of the life issue. They're the ones wanting to abort entire generations. And if you follow their leaders, their original founding leaders, they will make that a race component. They want to exterminate entire races from the population. They're the ones that like the genocide. They're actively doing it right now, and we're not, and we never have been. But if you say men can't be women, you're genocide. You're cosplaying womanhood. Is what you're doing. You're wearing womanhood as a costume. If we say that, it's literal genocide, and we're at the point where we're like, you know what? We don't need to be friends. I don't need to know you, and I'd prefer not to live in the same country with you. And regular, reasonable people, including people that are more leftist, are starting to feel that way.
Mm-hmm. So let's get some questions. Darth Amalgamation question. Do you think we have avoided major left-wing violence because of how much Trump won by? I think so. Yeah. I don't think him winning the popular vote, him winning this much in the Electoral College was significant, but him winning the popular vote this is a problem that the left has, is they will hold something up like, our democracy and the people having a say, and then when the people reject them to the tune of, him winning the popular vote by in the millions, it makes it really hard for them to be able to justify going. Now, I didn't think it would stop them, honestly. I still thought you would see rioting in Portland. I thought you would see rioting in major blue cities.
No, they've just been despondent.
And right now they're just depressed. You're starting to see some protests come out, but it hasn't been anything compared to what I think a lot of us anticipated it might have been. So I think the overwhelming Trump victory helps with that.
This is a total and utter repudiation of the left. In fact, it wouldn't be a podcast if I didn't just cite my own Twitter account. So here's Here you go. Here's the nationwide map. The swing map from
Yeah.
And I said this is the complete and total repudiation of the Leviathan. The managerial class has lost all credibility. The institutions they've hijacked and weaponized have no legitimacy whatsoever. They called him Hitler, and America chose him over them. Like that's the best way to describe it. Like the American people realized, because we're at the end of the long march to the institutions. Like it's over, and it ended with the left completely hijacking everything, things that you would have never imagined them hijacking. Your local D&D group, they hijacked, right? I used to be really into, I still am, but I used to be really into gaming.
Yeah,
and every space that I was a part of involved with that was hijacked by this ideology. And then eventually I got gate kept out of the very hobbies that I had been a part of since I was a teenager. Because I didn't toe the line on this just utter nonsense. Wearing, like wearing absurdity as a uniform. And you just get gate kept out by the left. And what happened was that this happened to enough people and enough times in enough unique circumstances. For me, it was mostly in my hobbies related to things like gaming. But for other people, it might have been in the workplace. Or for some people, it might have been discriminated against in a university when they apply to school. Or if they get into school, being discriminated against. Like everybody got mugged by reality in one way. And understand when I said for me it was about gaming, that wasn't the only thing, right? I was in politics, but that was like something that was personal to me. And everybody got mugged by reality. And so eventually what happened was that people realized, oh, these people hijacked all these institutions. Some of them are formalized, some of them are not formalized. Some of them are in government, some of them are outside of government, but they hijacked everything. And then they weaponized them against people. And it became so blatantly obvious that eventually they just stopped granting them legitimacy. The people did stop granting them legitimacy. And at that point, it fell apart. The charade disintegrated. And this is a total and utter repudiation of the left, of everything we've talked about on this podcast, of the long march to the institutions, of the Leviathan, of their ideology, of wokeism itself. This is an unraveling of the Great Awakening. And to put an end on this arc, like, what I think has happened here is that there was a true backlash against the fact that the long march to the institutions has reached its crescendo. And its crescendo is once the left hijacks everything, they actually alienate people from the very institutions that they hijacked, and then people just stopped caring what they have to say. And so when they go out there and say Trump is Hitler, a majority of the American people look at CNN or MSNBC or the New York Times and say, I don't care what you have to say anymore. I'm still going to vote for him.
They've lost all their credibility, and thank God. Gilgaze Hunter says, question, what can we do to stay on our representatives' back, make sure they're not pumping the brakes and are voting on legislation we'd like them to? This is going to be critical. This is going to be absolutely critical going into next year, because there will always be this push to, we need to come together as a country. Look, I would love to come together as a country for everybody that actually wants the kind of country we voted for. But understand that a lot of people don't. A lot of people are, again, and we're not talking about just random people on Reddit or in their mom's basements. We're talking about the Democratic caucus chair for the Senate Democrats in Virginia, Senator Maybe Locke, saying this is a reign of terror, that we just chose Barabbas over Jesus, right? That all of her rights are going to be taken away. They believe this. I used to think they just use it as like political hyperbole. A lot of them actually believe it. And it doesn't matter. As Tina pointed out earlier, you can say like, okay, where were the internment camps that Donald Trump put everybody in 2017? Oh, that didn't happen? And go, no, it was subtle. It was microaggressions. It was this, it was that. They will come up with something and then redefine.
Some kind of qualifier.
Come up with some sort of qualifier. Oh, no, that's really genocide. No, it isn't. Right? They do this all the time. So we need to guard against, there's going to be, I will tell you right now, what it's probably going to run down to is about 3 or 4 people in the Senate, 3 or 4 Republicans in the Senate, and probably anywhere from about 10 to 15 Republicans in the House of Representatives. Here is what I'm going to beg you not to do, right? And there's a reason why I'm talking this first. When you have good people that have demonstrated year over year over year over year that they will do the right thing, they will take the hard votes, they will do it. Don't throw them under the bus the moment you hear that they've done something or that they said something, or don't throw them under the bus. Certain people that have earned the benefit of the doubt, give them the benefit of the doubt. Let them state their case. Thomas Massey, the guy that Donald Trump is about to put as the head of, I think, the
Or
USDA.
hopefully put.
Right, hopefully
Yeah.
put his head as the USDA. Thomas Massey, the one guy in Congress that was called everybody back and said, no, you want to vote for all this spending on COVID? I'm going to make you come in and do it. Donald Trump went after him when he did that. He was right. Massey was right. So what I'm asking you to do is when people have demonstrated that they are willing to stand up, give them the benefit of the doubt, hear them out. Don't immediately throw them under, because one of the things the left and one of the things the establishment Republicans have understood is that it's really easy to play off of conservative skepticism of politicians in order to undermine the actual conservatives that are trying to do what you want. They will use that. They will use that idea of I don't trust any of these guys, and they will put stuff out there and they will try to tear down the Rand Pauls, the Thomas Masseys. They will try to tear down those guys within Congress. Don't be fooled by that. That's number one. Two, when you have somebody that has done a pretty good job, right? One of the best ways that you can do is you go and you visit them in their office, you call up, you visit them in their office in the district, and you say, hey, I'm so glad you got elected. I am excited. The reason why I voted, the reason why my friends voted, the reason is because we're very excited about what Trump and Vance are trying to do. And we're so excited that you are on board with that. And we're so excited that we can depend on you to do the right thing. A lot of times it's about encouraging people to be courageous, not threatening them if they're not. So when somebody has demonstrated that they are willing to do the right thing, encourage them to continue to do the right thing, right? There's nothing more frustrating than, again, if you, and I won't speak for women that have been elected, but I will speak for men. I'm a fighter. I at least have that reputation. I'm a fighter. And when I have somebody call me up who doesn't know me, who's never been involved with any of my legislation, calls me up and say, you better do whatever it is I had already intended to do. Do you know how funny it is to have somebody call me up and tell me that I better vote on a bill that I'm carrying? You know how frustrating that is? If you don't vote for this bill, I'm not going to vote for you again. It's my bill. I carried it. So do enough research that when you want to hold your representatives accountable, figure out, are they already doing the right thing? Then thank them and encourage them to do the right thing. Now, if they're not, or if they're wavering, that's the part where you apply pressure. And you get everybody you know to be flooding their office with, we expect you to vote for the things that we've voted you into office to do. And if you can't do that, and if you're going to tell me, well, I might lose my seat if I vote for this, well, I can promise you, you will lose your seat if you don't. There are some people that need to hear that, but it's not everybody. So it's going to take a little bit of work. Find some of the organizations within your state that do a good job of tracking these things in Congress, and work with them. Maximize the value of your time, because you got stuff to do. You're busy. You got to raise kids. You got a family. You got to go to work. You got to do all this stuff. So find organizations and find people that you trust. And when they give you good information on when would be the best time and the best way to leverage your power as a constituent in order to get what you want, trust them and do that. Right? That's the best advice I can give. So I'm sorry that was a little bit of a long-winded answer, but I've been on the side of this for a long time, and I've had people advocate. I've had people come in at a time where things are really difficult and say, Nick, we really appreciate that. We know we can trust you to stand strong. And man, that just feels so good in that moment. You're like, you know what? Every time I've thought about like I'm just done or I'm just tired or screw this, and you have a constituent come in and say, we're so grateful for the work that you do. Man, it feels good. It gives you that win to go out there and continue to fight even harder. But when someone comes in and just starts berating you because they don't even have good information, it's discouraging. It makes you want to just say, you know what, fine, you do it. So that's the insight I can give you from being on the inside on how it would be, how that can really help. We had a couple other questions here. Oh man. Okay, let me see. Did we get to all of them? Maybe we did. I think we did get to all of them. Okay, so, and that actually, and honestly, that question was a great one. Both those questions were really good because that was the second half of what we were going to talk about. We were going to talk about what we really need to do, and what we can do as citizens as well. The other thing that I would say for the Trump administration, obviously, I think he's going to come in day one. I think there's going to be a lot of focus on the border. I think there's going to be a lot of focus on doing things that need to be done within the economy. I'll be honest, there's going to be some things he does that I love. There's probably going to be some things that I disagree with a little bit. But I also know what team we're all on, right? So my
Right.
job is not to go out there. I will give honest opinions when I think that we could do something a little bit better, because I never want to be the party of, no, everyone just get in line and do as you're told. That's not who we are. That's not who we are. But I will say this, the most important thing that we can do, in my opinion, this is my opinion, and we're going to go around the table, we'll let everybody else give this will be kind of the final thing. What's your opinion on the most important thing that Trump can do within these first 2 years? Because in these first 2 years, he has Congress, he has the House, he has the Senate, he has a Supreme Court that's not going to undermine, the Constitution. This is it. This is the moment. 2 years, not 4, 2. You got 2. That's all you can get. That's all you can bet on right now. So what is the most important thing? I think the border is very important. I think the economy is very important. Please hear me when I say this, because I mean it very sincerely. Those 2 things pale in comparison to systematically changing civil service laws and drastically reducing the power of the bureaucracy. You can change the border. You can do things to improve the economy. And in 2 years, none of it will matter. In 4 years, it'll be completely gone. But if you reduce the power of the federal bureaucracy by getting rid of agencies, by changing civil service laws to where people actually have to be accountable to the elected representatives and to the elected people that put them in there, that's the shift. That's the shift. We are in the mess that we're in right now in large part because of a massive federal bureaucracy. If he can do that, that's where I can see a fundamental shift in the direction of the country in such a positive way that will allow people to keep more of their own money, that will drastically reduce the amount of ideological indoctrination that has worked itself into every aspect of our society in ways that we never anticipated, never asked for, and don't want. But if you get too caught up in doing the things that might be very important and certainly more flashy politically, if you do those things without addressing the federal bureaucracy, 6 to 8 years.
They'll just wait them out.
6 to 8 years, we'll be right back to where we at. So, and I honestly believe that the best way, and I really, really hope, like to the degree, look, I've been contacted by people in the Trump transition team, asking questions about things, and I don't want to make it out like this is more than what it is. It's not like Donald's calling me up asking my opinion. He isn't, right? But I would just say right now, his idea of putting Elon Musk in charge of a commission with someone like Ron Paul, with some people that understand the inner workings of government and how they do things and how they hide things and how they manipulate things. If you put the right amount of people in charge of a commission like that and you give it teeth with a Congress, they don't get 3 years to figure it out. You get 6 months to come back with massive recommendations for how you do it. If you put people in cabinet level positions, because now you're going to have a Senate that will confirm those cabinet level positions to where they are committed to working with that commission to actually reducing the rot. You do that, I will have more hope for our country than I've had in a long time. But by contrast, if you don't, things are going to get bad.
I love Elon's idea of giving people, basically closing down whole positions and giving people a 2-year severance package. Basically, you'll get paid just as normal for 2 years. The reason I like it is because then you could close the position down on the backside and not backfill it. And once the position's closed down, they will have to then make a case for bringing the position back, even though they managed to make it for 2 years without a person sitting in the seat. Yeah. And now I get it. I get the whole severance package thing sucks, but I think that's the best way not to have all the litigation surrounding it. If you make it a nice, sweet deal for them and get them out of office, or get them out of not office, but out of the federal government and shut down the position, I feel like we might be getting somewhere. Now, I don't love the idea of paying people not to do the work, but I do love the idea of being able to close it down on the back end and being done with it. But I also like the idea of a self-deportation. Let folks know that, look, if we find you in our country, you're going to be banned from our country for life. And it doesn't matter. Like if you don't belong here, you came here illegally, or you overstayed your visa, you will never get another visa into the U.S. and you're gone for life. If we find you, that's your result. If you leave on your own, you can come back legally and go through the proper process and we will welcome you. So hopefully we could get people to deport themselves with something like that. I just don't know if we have the teeth to do it.
I definitely agree with the deportation part. We need to build the wall, and we need mass deport. We need remigration like ASAP. The Democrats brought in, Elon is right on this. They brought in 10+ million illegal immigrants in 3 years because they wanted to change the voting demographics of this country because they believed that it would benefit them politically. It is the most cold and calculating and ruthless political move ever in the history of this country, and it must be reversed immediately, or else, as Elon said, I don't think we're going to win again. Period. If the country will turn into California otherwise. He's absolutely right on that. So we need to be doing everything we can to have mass deportations, and that includes self-deportations, but it also includes us deporting people, especially criminal gangs. I like we talked about this, you know, with some of the murders and stuff like that, like Lake and Riley in Georgia. No, those people need to be sent out immediately. Well, first off, they need to be thrown in prison, but like you get what I mean. Like we need to prioritize the border. We need to prioritize deportations. Because
I'm gonna have an interesting bill in Virginia this year on that topic.
So, but I very, very strongly disagree with Nick and Tina on how to eradicate the federal bureaucracy, because Nick and Tina think that we need to be paying the bureaucrats to not do work, and then the American people would realize, wait, why are we paying you? And
that is not how
you want
it's
to try
done.
that one more time, but honestly, this time
it's not the American people realizing it. It's what it is that way they don't bring the litigation, and they can shut down the position while the person's got their severance package. The position is shut down, and never relisted for hire.
Okay,
it's not about the American people going, why were we paying them? It's not about mind games.
So, Nick, you can tell me where I'm wrong here.
Yeah.
From our previous conversations that we've had on this podcast, you have made the argument that what we should be doing is sending these people home, but continuing to pay them, because then the American people would realize, why are we paying you to not do your job? We should just be cutting these agencies.
Yeah.
That was verbatim, I believe, the argument that you made to me.
It wasn't my argument. If it was somebody else's argument, that's fine, but it was not mine.
Let me just say this so you can then respond.
Okay.
That way we're talking about what we've actually been saying. She was talking about something that Elon Musk had talked about. Holcomb said, question, can you spend a little time on Schedule F? So that's what this is
the
about.
Topic. Yeah.
Schedule F is basically your civil service laws. So there's the vast majority of the federal bureaucracy cannot be hired or fired by the President of the United States. They're like semi-permanent employees at this point. So a lot of these appointees that the president has, he can only appoint people to positions which are considered kind of within that political spectrum. Right, your rank and file employees are now considered civil servants, and they have a ton of protections. Well, the problem is that they still have power to essentially undermine what the president wants. Now, civil service laws were put into place to try to prevent the spoils system, where basically someone would run for president and they would promise a bunch of federal jobs, but at that time there weren't a whole lot. You could work at the postal service, right? There just weren't a whole lot of jobs. The problem with it is that it has now created a massive federal bureaucracy which has the ability to wait out or undermine or pretty much push their own agenda within the system. And so Trump wanting to remove and reform Schedule F says that no, there has to be a larger percentage of people that fall within this category, because if somebody can undermine me and I can't fire them, I can't actually carry out the duties of the President of the United States. And I agree with him. Now, does this mean that if a Democrat were in office, they'd be able to fire a bunch of good people in order to replace? Yes. But that's part of the process with respect to electing a chief executive. They get to be the chief executive.
I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't go ahead and just fire the people and lay off the. Hold on, let me finish. Just real quick. If they didn't fire the people and lay people off, so that they could have that battle in the courts.
So this is the point. Okay, so that's what Schedule F is, so everyone understands what we're talking about, why this isn't as simple as President Trump just coming in and firing everyone. Christian and I were debating on what is the best way to do this. Okay, now one way that you can do it gets an automatic challenge in the courts. It's not necessarily a bad way. I don't disagree that you could do it this way and that it would be interesting, but you're going to end up with an automatic court battle because technically, unless you've changed Schedule F, you are violating federal law. And so now there's going to be a challenge on that. A couple of the ways that you can get around that The Elon Musk way that Tina described is you offer people severance. You say, hey, we don't want you to work here anymore. We're going to offer you severance. People voluntarily leave, and then you don't backfill positions. Now, will that still get a legal challenge? Yes, but it puts us in better position. Mm-hmm. The other way that you can go about it if you can't get Schedule F changed is you can basically tell people, okay, I am legally required to not get rid of your job, but I'm not required to have you show up to work and perform your job. And so once again, you get into a position where you get a legal challenge, but you're in a much better position because you haven't fired anyone. And yeah, the crappy part is you're essentially paying people to do nothing. Now, on the strategic side of that, what citizens who are paying too much taxes realize is, why am I paying people to? Why is it that my life isn't worse? In fact, maybe it's better that these people haven't showed up to work, but I'm still legally required to pay them. That's where you get to go to the American people. It's like, because of Schedule F. Schedule F is forcing you to pay people to do nothing, and them doing nothing is better than them doing their job. Right? That's the overall argument I was making. It was taking into consideration the laws that currently exists without without having the votes to change it. And then systematically creating popular anger about that particular system in a way that puts it into a good position to be able to change.
I do wonder about the constitutionality of that law, purely because of separation of powers, and if the president has certain powers, it doesn't seem like Congress should be allowed to be able to take those powers away from the president.
We can get into that's a whole nother conversation that we do not have time for today. I'm going to try to get to everyone's questions, but I promised Christian I would articulate what my position was so that he can then respond to it.
So my response is there just needs to be mass firings on day one. And when they sue, ignore the court rulings. And when they countersue, oh, we got an injunction. Great. Okay. What army is the judge going to use to enforce it? You're gone. You're fired. You air traffic control all these people. Do to them what Reagan did to the air traffic controllers, and just push the envelope as far as you can possibly go, and then keep pushing.
And just go ahead with the litigation.
And damn the consequences. And the reason why is because you won. You won a mandate. You won the popular vote. You're the first Republican in 20 years to do so. You won every single swing state, and you have a short amount of time. And Donald Trump, his inner circle needs to be told the way that you cement your legacy and you get your name on, or you get your face on Mount Rushmore, is if you eviscerate the Leviathan. You cut the head off the snake, and you do that through mass firings, and you ignore any attempts to overturn it because you have the power as the president to do this. Do it now and then wait for the courts to legitimize it later, because if we wait and we wait, they will drag this thing out for months. Biden has already put in regulations to try to delay the implementation of Schedule F. Schedule F is the implementation of reclassifying federal employees as political appointments in order for you to fire them. He has put in regulations to try to delay this process as long as possible for when he leaves office. Do it immediately. Tell the State Department, guess what? All of these different sub-agencies within the State Department that are promoting gender programs in Pakistan, that are promoting wokeism around the world, they're all fired. You're not showing up on Monday after the inauguration. Go to the EPA, cut the entire thing. You're all fired. There is no EPA anymore. Not filling it. Sorry, you're all fired. Go to the Department of Education, go to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, almost every single one of, if you want, one day we could maybe go through the whole list of all the sub-agencies within these departments.
We've done that. We did a whole episode once.
Half of them are woke cultural Marxist nonsense. Go to all of them and be like, you're all fired. You're not showing up on Monday. I don't really care if you sue. That's great. I'm closing the doors and you're physically not going in. And if necessary, I'll put armed guards there to make sure you're not going in. You're not getting any of your electronic paychecks. Go find another job somewhere else. Goodbye. You're the enemy. Why on earth are we paying for the privilege of allowing our enemies to collect a paycheck while they're not doing anything?
Mm-hmm. I think all this sounds good. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's exactly what Saul Alinsky would want us to do, because our reaction is their action, right? They want you to be like, yeah, you won a mandate. Go burn it down and do it in a way that we can make the best argument possible that you're unhinged. And because again, yeah, we won the popular vote. Yes, we won the electoral college overwhelmingly, but in about 5 of those states, we won it by less than 2 points. So no, we can't just do whatever the hell we want without any sort of backlash. We still have to be smart about the way we do things.
When has that ever stopped the left from doing? The left went. Nick, you have said
want to know
yourself.
when? Tuesday.
Yeah, after
Tuesday.
After 40 years of them getting their way at every turn, you have
They
said
didn't get their way at every single turn.
Nick, you have said it yourself on the floor of the House of Delegates, and you've said it to me on this podcast. You've said it in our private conversations all the time that the left wins an election and they don't care about the political consequences. They do what they want to do when they win an election. They ram their agenda down the throats of the American people. And the only mistake they made was they rammed it a little bit too far for a little bit too long. And there was finally, after a generation, a backlash against what they did. But the hour is late. We got to transing kids before there was finally a backlash. So I don't care about the backlash, and neither should Trump because he's term limited. We should be doing whatever we want, whenever we want, ramming our agenda down their throats, mass firings on day one, and telling them, good luck overturning this. Because I don't care about the backlash at this point. They don't care about the backlash.
Okay,
and if we
can
do
I-
it,
can I say
we'll
something
win the
real
next
quick?
election in a landslide if we do
Listen,
it.
am I the only one at the table who actually thinks the spoil system would be fantastic? The only reason I say
No,
this...
you're not. You're not.
I think just bear with me for a second. If we had the spoil system, we would know for sure if an administration was doing a good job or not. We would know it for sure because everyone they put into place would be of their choosing. They are the one on the hook for everything their administration does. And so if we had the spoil system, I feel like we would have a much more transparent situation going on in Washington, D.C.
Here's my thing. I think all three of us want the same thing. I just want to make sure that we can pull it off. I want to make sure that we can pull it off. I do not want to hand.
So the question is about strategy,
This is about strategy. I do not think this is fundamentally about like the end state. This really is about strategy.
Nick, I truly believe we have to brute force this as fast as we possibly can and be as ruthless as possible in cutting the bureaucracy because I don't care if our action is their reaction. They can react all they want as long as I win.
Christian,
I don't care what the reaction is.
As long as you win, but that's the thing. Saul, let's get in and say that because as long as you win is the question. Because if you implement the wrong strategy and this is one thing that I have had fights with people before on. Because man, it is so easy to not be the ones responsible for the end state and say, I don't care, I want this. Okay, but I've been on the side where you're responsible and you damn well better get it right because if you don't, people are going to suffer. And so this is not me being weak or not wanting to go hard or not. That's not any of it. It's about trying to think strategically on what actually achieves it. Now, I believe you are doing the same thing and we might just disagree on the proper way to implement the strategy. But I want it to be understood that that's what we're having a discussion on. What's the proper strategy implementation? Because this is no less commitment to wanting to actually save the country and wanting to actually dismantle the bureaucracy. But it's also about understanding what power you actually have, not your perceived power. Because perceived power does have some strength to it.
We know that.
But it dang well better be backed up with ability to actually implement it. And the thing is that if you get to a point where a significant part of your own coalition turns on you, you don't have the power to implement it.
Who in our coalition is going to turn on us for shutting down the EPA?
Okay, let me just put it this way, you
Christian,
guys.
No.
Hold on.
This is the sort of liberal tactic that I can't stand. I'm going to say we're going to do this, and when I point out that could potentially cause us some problems, who's going to get in trouble with us for doing this? You didn't say this. You said this.
Hold on. All we need to know is what happens every single time there is a big budget deal going on and they shut down the government for it. Who gets blamed for it every single time the government gets shut down? And Republicans get mad even about the government shutting down. When in reality, government shutting down should make us all happy. We should be filled with glee. But instead, it ends up being all about all these poor people that they're not getting what they're supposed to have and this and that. And then what do the Democrats do? They go, well, I guess we can't pay the troops.
Yeah. Here's what I'm going to say. I love it. I love it when Christian and I get like this. We have some of our best discussions this way. Because anyway, we just do. We do got to finish up here pretty quick. I got a 5-hour drive ahead of me. Mr. Fox said, now that we have the win, what are the actual chances that we significantly cut the alphabet agencies with the Senate and the House actually do their job? I will put it this way. I think we've had the best chance we've ever had. I would put it, I'll let everyone go around the room and say the thing. Give your percentage. I think 60-40, we actually do significant cuts. I'm giving us a 60-40 chance with this administration, with this Congress, that we actually do it.
Significant permanent cuts.
Significant permanent cuts. And I will say this, if we don't, you're going to see a different side of me. You're going to see it. If we don't do it this time, in the next 2 years, you will see a very, very different side of me on the other side of that 2 years. Christian?
0% chance.
0% chance we do it. Tina?
0% chance of what?
That we're able to do
what will
this.
the actual chances that we significantly cut the alphabet
Let me rephrase
agencies?
that. If we do it the way that I suggested, 100% chance, because it'll just be done and we'll just brute force it. If we try to do this, through the legislative process, 0% chance. And the reason why is because Democrats will just filibuster any attempt to shut down anything, any attempt to change any civil service laws. That's why I said you need to just brute force it.
I agree with that. I agree that it won't happen through Congress. I'll just say it that way. But I do think it can happen other interesting ways. There's very good lawyers to try to figure out what kind of loopholes we could use in order to shut things down and reduce the size of government.
I agree. I agree with Christian that if you're waiting to change Schedule F in order to make the changes, it won't happen. You have to implement something immediately at the same time that you're trying to change Schedule F. The moment you change Schedule F, that's again, there's a difference in strategy and how we actually do it, and how that happens. But yeah, so there you go. I hope we answered that question.
Let it go to the courts. Let the Supreme Court say, yeah, no, this is an overreach of Congress. This law's moot, and just strike down the law.
Yeah. So, anyways, I think we've gotten everyone. We've asked everybody if they had any questions that we didn't get to please put it in there. Again, hey, look, overall, this was it was a good day on Tuesday. It was a very good day on Tuesday. I'm really encouraged on what we can actually achieve over the next 2 years. But the next 2 years is what matters. If we're thinking 4 years, I think that's the wrong way to think about it, because the trend usually is you lose seats in the midterm. And they don't got to pick up. We had a very, very favorable, and correct me if I'm wrong, Christian, we had a very favorable Senate map.
We actually just picked up another senator in Pennsylvania. The counts came in, and he's declared victory, but it's within half a point. So they're probably going to hold it up for a while.
Yeah. So we've got that. Like, it's been a really good night. The next 2 years are going to be critical. I think everyone should enjoy the victory. Right? We talk a lot about what do we got to do next, and we're always going to be very, very passionate on what that actually looks like and what's the best strategy to do it. I think all of us agree that we can't just wait on Congress to, hopefully we'll get a Schedule F amendment, or we'll get an amendment to Schedule F in the next year, and then we can do something. We all agree you got to do something right the hell now. The question is what strategy do you implement? How do you do it? And then what happens when you get pushback? That's another area where I think we're all agreed. When you get pushback, you got to continue to drive. You got to continue to drive forward, because the American people need to see that they don't need these agencies. They don't need to just see that it's a waste of money. They need to see that it's actually being utilized against them. Right? That's how bad this is. This is not just recovering more of your tax dollars. This is about recovering more of your freedom, more of your choices, more of an original idea on the proper role of the federal government versus the states versus localities. All of it is tied up into it, and that is why it is so critical, and that is why the Trump administration and this Congress has to act immediately in order to affect it. So, once again, thank you all very much for joining us. I also want to say this. Thank you guys very much for coming on, watching. Love the chat. I think we were able to get to pretty much all of the questions, and that was a big reason why we wanted to do it this way, so that we could focus more on the actual topic that we were doing, the questions that you had. Hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next episode.